Hi everyone, Jaffe here, and welcome back to Around the World in Many Days. Today's episode is number 26 and it's titled Protected Schooling. So this time we're going to do a Shakashaka puzzle and a cryptic crossword. Let's look at how they work. As always, reading the preamble first. This is a Shakashaka puzzle. Mark some cells half shaded along a diagonal, one half white, one half black, so that every remaining white area is in the shape of a rectangle. Some cells have numbers in them. Let me show you the grid. So this is the Shakashaka grid here. Some cells have numbers in them. The number indicates how many filled in, that is half shaded, cells the numbered cell shares an edge with. Let's stop there for a bit. I'll come back to the preamble, but just show you what the idea is. So we put triangles in the grid and try to form rectangles in some way. So that's a rectangle, and this would be a rectangle as well. We all know what a rectangle is, so these triangles need to form rectangles, and there can't be any other shapes, white shapes in the grid once we're finished. And these numbers mean that this 3 means that there are 3 triangles next to this 3, and the fourth side is empty in some way. Okay, we're going to start with this one, but let's look at the rest of the preamble. So in the crossword, the wordplay part of every clue gives one letter too many. These extra letters must be omitted when entering the answers into the grid. We'll come back to the crossword. Today I have explored the coral reefs around a tropical paradise island and truly appreciated the variety of marine life that can flourish in such an environment when humans take the appropriate steps to protect it. I have seen sea turtles, dolphins, manta rays, and hammerhead sharks schooling in the pristine waters. Can you guess where I am? Love, Gladys. Okay, so we're looking for an island that has a lot of marine life. Let's see. So starting with the Shakashaka then. Okay, here we are. So, what's the best place to start in a Shakashaka? Well, some numbers here are going to be very limiting, and we can find out something about the numbers. But let's look at first places where no triangle can fit. Like for example, this one. Whenever we have an empty cell that's that doesn't have a neighbor, let's say this one doesn't have an empty neighbor vertically. Any such place, we have a few here in the grid, this one, this one, this one, this one, that are like not bordered by another empty cell in one direction. However, we try to put a triangle here, that doesn't work. Like any of these shapes cannot be part of a rectangle because this is not a straight angle and a rectangle only has straight angles. So these we can already mark as empty, all of these cells, because no rectangle can fit there. Or rather, a triangle can fit there, but it can't make a rectangle. Let's put it that way. So we can mark these as empty immediately, and during the solving, let's say we have a triangle here, we already know this is going to be empty as well by the same reasoning. There are 4 ways to put a triangle here, and however we put it, it's not going to be able to form a rectangle. So just keeping that in mind, because that will come up later, most likely in this one. But then looking at the numbers, what I was saying about the numbers, some numbers are going to force some cells to be a triangle. So if we had a 4, for example, if this one was a 4, we would know that every side of it would need to be a triangle in some way. We don't have any 4s, but for example, this 3 can't have a triangle here. So all of these cells. Oh, by the way, I'm marking this dot to mean empty cell. Just I usually use that light green, but I don't want to scroll up and down, so that's why it's the dot now. So yeah, these 3 cells are all going to be triangles. They're all going to be filled, and this one, there's only one way to fill. Like if we try to do it here, we're making this angle, which doesn't work, 45-degree angle. The only way that it does work is filling out this part. So this works, and how it works is we make a straight angle here, forming some part of a rectangle here. And same here. So this is bound on two sides, so we have to use the open sides for the rectangle. So this one and this one. And again, this continues this way. And like I mentioned earlier, whenever we get this shape, which is like white area of width 1, let's just say, call it that. So that's always going to be empty. And these empties do help us because we already know, based on these empties, we know, for example, this can't be empty because that would force empties here, and all of a sudden we have a white area that's not a rectangle and can never be part of any rectangle, this shape here, because these are not white. So we know this isn't white, for example. What other like forcing numbers do we have? We have a 2 here, and only 2 options, so both of these need to be filled. Now there's 2 options for this one. It could be this or it could be this, right? But this one definitely has to go this way, and continue here. Now the center is a little bit limited because once you put any rectangle here, that's going to form a lot of that's going to limit the surrounding cells a lot. So let's, for example, put a square here. So this is clearly wrong because this would now be empty. This would have to be empty, and again, this is not a rectangle and not part of any rectangle. So we can't do that. But how do we do this? Well, we know this one can't be empty, because if this is empty, then we have width 1 here, so this must be empty and this must be empty. Again, not a rectangle. So this is filled. Now, multiple ways to fill it, 2 in fact, but both of these now can't be filled. You can't have 3 rectangles in this area of width 3 here, because one of them would make this 45-degree angle. Doesn't matter which way you put them. Either way, you get one that doesn't work. So this is filled, and one of these is filled, but not both. Now this could still be empty because this 3 can have 3 triangles on these squares, but this could also be empty. This 2 could be filled this way. So let's try both of them out and see what happens when we do that. So if we fill this one, that means this cell has to be filled in this direction. Now the rectangle that starts here must go here because this must be empty, and it can't continue this way because this 2 is in the way, so this is the only option now. So if we fill this, these all are forced. And what happens when we do that? Well, that's empty, that's empty, that's empty, that's empty, and this is also empty. And this is not a rectangle, so we can say that this is an illegal. This is illegal. We can't leave these all unshaded in this shape, which means that this can't be this can't be filled then. Which all is to say that this is empty. This was still filled. Now only one way to fill it, and this must be filled as well. And once we do that, I think we can find a lot of things about this center here. So this can't be empty because that would make an illegal shape here in white. So that must be filled. Only one way to do it. And now that we have this side of a rectangle, this is a 2, length 2 here, we're going to have a length 2 on the other side as well. So it can't be here because we can't trap the 2 inside it. It has to be entirely white. So only one way to do it is this. So that's a rectangle. Here we have the 2 filled. So we get two empties here. We have the one already filled. This is the rectangle, the one rectangle that's allowed on this one. So these are empty. And now this is another shape that comes up pretty regularly in these puzzles. Is this empty diagonally from another empty? And whenever you see that, we have to separate these, because putting an empty here would mean we make a shape that can't be a rectangle. So anytime we see these two diagonal empties, we have to separate them, and there's only one way to separate them, because remember, this has to be we can't put an empty side here next to the white. There's no way to make a rectangle like this, so it has to be the straight, sort of the horizontal or vertical side towards the white. And the same applies here and here. We have to separate these and these in order to keep them rectangular. So we closed this in. A square is a rectangle, so that works. That works. This could still continue this way. Like, for example, we could be doing something like this. So this doesn't have to be filled necessarily. This must continue this way. So we have to make a straight angle here. And now we know this is empty, and we can't continue the shape this way because we have a rectangle here. This would make it not a rectangle, so we have to fill this here. Filling that takes away uses the only shaded side of the one, so these have to be empties, and now we have diagonal empties here, and we have to separate them. Now that we do that, we have a side of size 3 here. Now obviously we can't continue this way. That's not a straight angle. So we have to turn, and then turn again once we meet the edge of the grid. And since this is a size 3, this side also needs to be at least size 3. Now it could continue here, like this, or it could be like this. But in fact, I think we can see if we try to fill it like this. Now we see this is empty, 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 and this must be empty, and this is not a rectangle. So that doesn't work. So in fact, we must continue it all the way here. These are all rectangular, so that works, but this is not a rectangular shape, so we have to add something there. And there's only one way we can fill this, because the smallest rectangle we can add, like even if we had all the space in the world, the smallest rectangle we can add in an entirely white space is this 2 by 2 area, and that's here. So that's the only way this area works. Now then, since we had to turn here, that also makes this empty, and that means two things. It means this can't continue this way, so that wouldn't be a rectangle, so we have to fill this, and also that means this must be filled now, because the 2 needs another filled cell next to it. So fill that, turn here. Now this looks like it could be part of a big rectangle here. Could it not be? If we fill this as 2 by 2, this is already impossible to fill. So this is not going to be 2, it's going to be 3 or more. And once we make it 3 or more, we have to meet this. And only one way to fill this. That's that. So here we made this 2 by 3 rectangle here, and that gives us an empty here. Can't be a triangle. An empty here, and again this can't be empty, so we must fill that, and that must turn here and here. Now this 3 has 2 filled sides. This is empty, so this must be filled. Only one way to do it. Can't put it like this, can't put it like this, can't put it like this. Only one way, and this must turn here. Now we know this is empty as well, and this could be empty if we do something like this. but it could also be filled if we do something like this. So don't necessarily know what's happening there. We do know this side has to turn, make a straight 90-degree turn here. So that must be filled, and now we have two sides of the two filled. So this is empty, and now this can't continue, so it must turn. Now then, we also know these two needs two filled sides, and it already has two empty sides. So these both need to be filled. Only one way to do this, but still a couple of ways to do this. It could be like this or like this. These must turn. Now then, I think this can't be empty, this cell here. If this is empty, this is with 1, so it has to be empty, and this is not a rectangle. So we can't make this empty, and only one way to fill it is, the only way to fill it is here. Now once again we turn here. Once we meet the edge of the grid or a filled side we have to turn, this has to turn there. Now this can't continue this way, this rectangle here, because that would make this an impossible shape. So that must be filled like this, and that also forces this one above it to turn here. And we can see that this one now has only one option. We can't continue this way. We must make this empty and then turn here and here. So that's a small rectangle here. And the 3 needs a third filled side. So it's going to be here. And only one way to fill this one. So that makes a side of size 3. And we know this is the corresponding side on the other side. So that must be size 3 as well. Now we can't put any triangle here, so that must be empty. Can't continue here because that's not a rectangle, so that must be filled. Must turn here, making an empty here. That's fine. We must turn here because we meet this wall, and since this is size 2, we must make a size 2 here. Looking like we're about to finish this, so let's see. Can't put a triangle here, so that's empty. Can't continue with an empty here because that's not a rectangle, so we fill this. We must turn, must turn here, and must turn here. And now, if we try to make this a 1 by 1, now this is not a rectangle, so that's not allowed. So this must be empty, and we must continue this way and this way. So that is the filled Shakashaka grid. Everything is rectangular, and all the numbers have the correct number of filled neighbors. So we don't know yet what to do with this grid. We're going to figure that out once we solve the crossword. So I'm going to look at the crossword next and then come back to this once we know what we need to do with this grid. So let's see where we have our crossword grid. Actually, a crossword grid has been here all the time, the entire time. But let's see how we put this. So we have these clues here. The grid is here, but I'm going to need another window because let's go back to the preamble. It said the wordplay part of every clue gives one letter too many, and these letters must be omitted when entering answers into the grid. So like, for example, here we have a 5-letter word for 7. So once you do the wordplay, you would get 6 letters, and you have to remove one of them. So what I'm going to do, and what you might not do solving this the first time, but what I'm going to do is keep track of what letters we are removing from each clue, because that's going to be important. I don't think that's the way you would do it in when solving. You might solve everything and then only later look at the the letters that you dropped from each clue, but I don't want to go back to the clues at the end. So I'm gonna have a notepad window where I put the missing the extra letters. So that would be here. I have the list of across and down clues here. I'm gonna put the letters here just to keep track of what we are doing. So this is a cryptic crossword. We've done it many times, not 1,000 times, but many. So let's see what we have. So the only difference is we get one letter too many from the wordplay part, but the definition part should give just the answer that we need in the grid. So let's start with the first across clue here. Mr. Mourinho who coaches an average fellow ? Now we're going to need the name of a person whose last name is Mourinho and who coaches. A football coach named Mourinho, that would be Jose Mourinho, Jose. Now that's 4 letters. So that's going to be our wordplay part because that's 1 letter too many for this 3. So the actual definition that we need in the grid is going to be an average fellow ? So remove 1 letter from Jose to make an average fellow, and an average Joe would be an average fellow. So we remove the S from Jose and we get Joe. And we keep track of what we remove. So 3 was S here. Then let's look at using these crossing answers. Let's look at 3 down. Canadian player belonging to Skopje ethnicity. Now, belonging to something, it could be container indicator. So it could be a player, maybe an abbreviation of player inside a short term for Skopje ethnicity. Skopje is in North Macedonia. It doesn't have a great short synonym, especially for 3 letters. So that's not what's going on in this clue, but it could be. This indicator could mean that. It could also mean, which is the case with a lot of these container indicators. They can also indicate a hidden word. So a lot of the same words that indicate putting something inside another word can also mean that something is hidden in these words. And if we look inside these words, we get the word jeet, which is 4 letters. And again, 4 letters is like it's one too many. So a Canadian player would be Jet, a player of the Winnipeg Jets. And we remove one of the E's, doesn't matter which one, we get Jet. And we mark the 3 down as an E. Now then, let's look at this 4 since we have a starting letter. Mountain that's always in the direction of Spokane when looking from Seattle. Okay, so always. What's this always doing here? Always can be ever, if you are always watchful, ever watchful. Always and ever are synonymous. Now, can you come up with a mountain that starts with ever? I can. And that's Everest. So ever would be this one here, and then the EST would come from all of these in the direction of Spokane when looking from Seattle. Well, Spokane is in like the eastern part of Washington, so looking from Seattle, that would be east, EAST. So we put ever, and then east without the A here. So A was the letter we removed from the wordplay. and 4 down, therefore, is A. Then let's look at this 7 across. Piece of rope seen twisted to bind couple of kangaroos. Couple of or pair of in cryptics can mean, well, it could mean a couple of letters from this word kangaroos, but it can also mean letters that are a couple in the word kangaroos, these two O's. So a pair of the same letter twice, or the same letter twice, forming a pair. So a couple of kangaroos in this case is going to be this OO here. And that is bound by something that is inside, seen twisted. So the letters of the word seen twisted, so in a different order. We anagram the word seen and put an OO inside it. Now that is, by my count, is 6 letters, so one too many, which is what we expect. So the OO is going to be inside, and we need a word for a piece of rope, and a noose is a piece of rope. So that's SE and N without the second E here. So the second E was the extra letter. I'm going to mark it here. So noose was the piece of rope we were looking for. Then we have, let's look at one down. We have an N here. What's involved in founding a telephone company? Something's if something is involved in something, it's inside. It can be inside it. So this could be a word hidden here. And in fact, if we look at these 6 letters, that's Inatel. And the definition would be company, and Intel without the A here is a company. So that's why we have this apostrophe here, which is always suspicious if you see an apostrophe like this, because that's not how you would normally write founding. So it's going to be somehow important that there's no G here. So Intel is the name of the company here, and the A is the letter we removed from one down. Then we have a starting letter for 9 across, starts with an E here. Spanish banker's brother apprehended by backers of Portuguese police. Well, we're not going to need any names of bankers, as in people from Spain, but we are going to need another type of name. We're going to need the name of a river here, and a banker is sort of crossword is for river because a river has banks. So we're looking for a Spanish river here. Brother, a short word for brother, is apprehended by, is inside the backers of Portuguese police. So backers means just the backing letters here, the final letters. So EE contains a word for brother, and since we need 5 letters from the wordplay, we are looking for a 3-letter word for brother, and one common one is bro. So that would make Ibroe, and if we Ibroe, it would be like this, but if we remove the final E here, we get Ebro, which is a river in Spain. And for 9 across, we then removed E. Now 2 should be doable with these 2 letters here. Let's do this. So adopt either side in beta fight. So either side in, this can mean either the start or the end letter of the word beta. But that's not actually all that's going on. So side in beta would already do that. Side in beta could be B, or side in beta could be R. So what's the either doing here? And so either side of uh, either side of the word beta could be B or E. And if we spell that out entirely, B or E, B or R, I should say, B or R. That is going to be the start of our word here. And um, a fight is a row. So if we put a row here, removing the R here, which would be the third R, removing the R, we would get just O. And borrow something is to adopt it. You adopt, what can you adopt? Well, you adopt something, you borrow it, like an idea, for example. You adopt someone's idea, you borrow their idea. So we removed one of the R's here. So B, or R, and then the third R was removed here. So let's look at maybe this one. This long 13 across has the W as the second letter. So here we are. Engineer dam's worst fighter. And engineer is one of those words that can be pretty hard to spot as anagram indicators, which is the case here. So like if you read this, you would assume that engineer here is a noun, but here you need engineer to engineer. You engineer these letters into something, and what you get is a word meaning fighter. Now these are 10 letters, so we need to remove one and then anagram the rest of them. So the answer is going to be swordsman, which means fighter. So what are we removing then? Swordsman has no T, I think. Let's just spell that out so that I'm not missing anything. No T here. So swordsman is going to be the answer, and T was the letter we removed. Just an anagram of these letters without the T. Then should we look at this top corner here? We have an N for 11 down. Working after Iron Age. If something is working, it is on, like an appliance is working, it is on. Iron in the periodic table is Fe. So we put on after Fe, we get Theon. And we need a word for age, so we remove the F and we get eon, an age. And we mark F for 11 down. Then we should be able to do this 10 across. Coco regularly destroys trends. Now, Coco regularly is going to be either the odd letters or the even letters of the word cocoa. So either CC or OO. Now, then we need a word for destroys that goes here. And the answer is going to be a word meaning trends. So note that neither CC or OO fits here. So one of them is going to be the removed letter. So we need a word that means destroys. It goes here. And that's going to be erases. You erase something, you destroy it, and you put a C. C before it, you get crazies, trends. So the other C from Coco was the one that we removed then. So 10 across has a C removed. And now we have a Z for 5 down. Interrogate Marquise Zhao's prisoners. And there's a Z in the clue, which is suspicious. And prisoners in these words would be like it can mean hidden word, like something that's trapped inside these words. And if we take these 5 letters, quiz with an S in the middle. So to quiz someone, to interrogate them. And S is the extra letter here. So let's mark S for 5 down. Then we have a U for these 8 across. Unequivocal plus sides. Now 3-letter answer, and this is an and lit clue. So we are going to need the entire thing for the wordplay, and it's relatively simple. So sides, we mentioned sides in the other clue. What was it? It was in this borrow, wasn't it? Either side in. So the sides of a word, the sides of a word plus, the word plus is P and S, and the sides of this word would be U and L. So if we take the sides of both of these words, we get ULPS. And if we removed the L there, we get ups, unequivocal but plus sides. The ups are the upsides, the plus sides of a thing are the positive things about it. So that's the entire thing is the definition as well. And now 6 down has S and S. Also, we should mark this 8 across. We should mark that we remove the L here. And we already see that this is starting to spell something, but let's look at that in the end. So 6 down, Osiris managed to remove the head of Ra, an important figure in Egyptian mythology. Something is managed. Now, in you can say, if you say managed in crossword, so it can mean things like ran or led, very useful synonyms for managed. But here it means you manage these letters, you make something out of them, you anagram the word Osiris, you remove the head of Ra. So the head of Ra would be the head letter, the starting letter of Ra. So remove the R from Osiris, and we're left with Osi is, and we anagram that to get an important figure in Egyptian mythology. Now it's going to be Isis. So an anagram of Osiris without the R, and then with the O removed as well. So Isis is an Egyptian deity. So we removed the extra letter. Here was this O. So 6 down has an O. And the top half almost done. Let's look at this 12 down then. Intense French shenanigans. So this is going to be a word meaning intense. French is just the abbreviation FR. And then we need the word antics, which means shenanigans. And we remove the last letter to get antic. And frantic means intense. So we removed an S here. FR plus antics. Remove the S, we get frantic. And the S was the one that was removed. Let's look at this 13 down then. How to address a knight's assistant. How to address a knight, starting with S, 3 letters. It's pretty straightforwardly, sir. And an assistant. So we would need a 4-letter assistant where we can remove 1 letter to make sir, and that would be Siri, the computer assistant. So we removed an I from 13 down. Remove I from Siri. And let's look at 16 then. 16 across. Requiring knowledge which is difficult to obtain and can wear off. So it's sometimes happens that the definition is a lot longer than the wordplay. It's not often, but here we have a definition that's all of these words. Requiring knowledge which is difficult to obtain. And the answer is arcane. And how the wordplay works is off means if these letters are off, they're in the wrong order. So we anagram the words can wear. We get arcane with an extra W here. So that's what's going on here, and 16 gets a W. Then I think we can finish this corner now. So 16 down starts with an A. A beast of burden is showing Italy, Germany, and others. So Italy, Germany, and others, if you think of in World War II, Italy, Germany, and others, what they were called, starting with an A. So that's going to be the answer. And the A that we have in the grid is going to be this A here. Then we need a short word for a beast of burden. And then we need this is here. And the beast of burden we need is ox. So A plus ox plus is. We remove the O, we get axis, which was the side with Italy and Germany in World War II. Then 20 across, let's see. Leaders of Islamic Republic intentionally aiding paramilitary organization. When leaders of should be at this point, it should be pretty clear that this is going to be the first letters of the following words. So I, R, I, A. Area. If we remove one of the I's, we get IRA, paramilitary organization. And we know it's an abbreviation because we have it mentioned here. So we removed an I here. And did we mark the O from 16 down? We did not. Let's mark that. I'm sure I've forgotten to mark some of the letters, but we'll go back to that once we finish all the clues. So let's do the 17 down. Scottish family on a medium-sized steamer, question mark. A Scottish family would be a clan. Now that already fits here, but it's not going to be the answer. Medium-sized, clothing sizes have one letter abbreviations. Medium-sized would be M. So clan M is 5 letters. We have to remove something. And steamer, question mark. A steamer is a type of clam. So we remove the N and we get clam. 17, removing the N. And that's this corner done. Now let's move into this corner. 2 ways to do it. Let's go from here. 22 across. Echoes surrounding copper's signal to act. Copper, in addition to meaning policeman, it's also a metal in the periodic table, and its abbreviation is Cu. Echo is in the International Radio alphabet, so that's the code letter for the letter E. So if we put EE around Cu, we get EQ, and if we remove the first E, we get the word Q, which means signal to act, as in a theater. So one E was removed here. Then let's look at 19 down. That man supports Anglican church activist. That man can be he. So he supports something in a down clue supports something. It supports it from below. It is below it. So he would be here. And then Anglican Church has an abbreviation, which is CE, Church of England. It can also be C of E, but CE is much more common, at least in crosswords, because it's such a useful letter combination. So CE supported by HE, and we get an activist. That would be Che, which means we remove one of the E's here. Che Guevara was an activist. So 19 down, we removed an E here. Now then, let's look at this 21. Lift off, it's hot. Now, this is these are 6 letters, so off. This actually, you might call it a mistake. I've used this off twice here for the same purpose. This was an anagram indicator, and this was an anagram indicator. I try to not do that because there are so many ways to indicate an anagram, but here it's used twice for some reason. So again, anagram these words. That's 6 letters. Remove one to make lift. So you hoist something, you lift it. And what did we remove? We had 2 T's, so we removed 1 T here. So mark that as the removed letter. Then 15 down. Perhaps alt-right to go to capital once. Now note that the word alt-right, if it's the if you meant to make this a unit, alt-right, that would be with a hyphen, like the right-wing people, alt-right, that would be with a hyphen. So probably important that there's no hyphen here. So perhaps alt, well, your keyboard has an alt, so that would be a key. And right to go to like, I'm actually struggling to, the answer is Kyoto, but I'm struggling to get why this is Kyoto. So right to go is the rightmost letter of the word go. So that's this O here. Oh, and then the toe is just plain. So it's the word key without the E there. So KY, we remove the E here. So that's perhaps alt. Right to go is to the rightmost letter of go. So that's the O here. And 2 is just this 2 here. Almost confused myself there. These words like 2 are so easy to ignore when you're reading it. But yeah, here it was very important. Like it was the is was in ISIS, very important there. Okay, let's look at 18 since we have a Y here. Roald, who wrote about Yankee Woman. Well, Roald, who wrote, is going to be Dahl, D-A-H-L. That is about, that has turned about, that's backwards. And then Yankee, again from the radio alphabet, that is just Y. So if we write Dahl backwards without the H, we get lady. Lady, a woman. So we remove the H here. And 18 gets a H. And we have 1 clue left, so 14 down. Computer programming woman soldier seen near Australia being leisurely. So computer programming woman, and this is an answer you might see in another crossword. I mean, it's a pretty useful sort of useful short answer. So computer programming woman. One of the early programmers was Ada Lovelace, ADA, and that's also a name of a programming language named after her. So Ada fits here. And then we have soldier, seen near Australia. Now, soldier can be a GI. A GI is a soldier. That's this GI here. And that is seen near, that is next to a word for Australia. Now, a short word for Australia is Oz, OZ. And if we remove the Z here, we get adagio, which is leisurely in music. So we removed a Z from 14, and that is the finished grid. So now let's see what we forgot here. We need to add some removed letters. There's only this 15, I think. So 15, we removed this E from Kyoto, from the word key here. And now we can read this. So that is select white areas of size 1. So we had white areas in the Shakashaka, and if we map those cells to this crossword, we should find what we're looking for. So let's open the Shakashaka again. Here we are. Select, and we have white areas of size 1. So here's one, here, here. All of these are size 1. So the smallest possible rectangles here in the Shakashaka. I think that's all of them. So let's mark those same squares here. So that would be this I here, then 3, skip 3 and this L. That would be this S. Then that would be skip 4 and then this 5th. So that would be here. Skip 3 and then this. So here. Then that would be this C and then make a V shape here. And we're missing something. This one. This O here. So if we highlight all of those letters, we get the name of our destination. ISLA, Isla, DEL, Del, COCO, Coco. So Isla del Coco, which is the name of an island. And let's look at where they are, where that island is. If we can find it. Here it is. So Cocos Island in Costa Rica, which is a protected area, environmentally protected area, and has what we were looking for: sea turtles, dolphins, hammerhead sharks, and so forth. So that is our destination today, and let's look at where we are on the map then. So we were in Peru last time, Cuelap, and I mentioned that's the last South American destination. So South American trip was pretty brief, and now we are here next to Central America in Cocos Island. So that is our journey so far: Africa, Europe, South America very briefly, and now we are heading this way. And the next puzzle, which is 27, is going to be called. Can I do it? Something with circuits. Let's see. Hiking circuits. Yeah, it's sort of a very different type of puzzle than anything we had. It's sort of a circuit thing with a circuit puzzle. Let's just call it that. And yeah, I will see you next time for that one. And for this one, thanks for watching.